Renee and I are in love, my husband announced at dinner. She's everything I need in my life right now. The Renee he was talking about? His 24-year-old mistress who told him she was a freelance photographer. What he didn't know was that she was actually a junior marketing associate at my company, and I was the CEO who signed her paychecks. I set down my wine glass carefully, watching Peter fidget with his napkin across our dining table. The man I'd been married to for 12 years couldn't even look me in the eye. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. How long? I asked, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. 6 months, he mumbled. I didn't plan for this to happen, Esme. But Renee, she gets me. She sees the real me, not just the guy who couldn't make partner at the firm. I almost laughed. The real him? The same man who spent our entire marriage complaining that I worked too much, that I was never home, that I didn't understand his struggles? The irony was thick enough to choke on. And what exactly does Renee do? I asked, though I already knew, far more than he could imagine. Peter's eyes lit up, the first sign of life I'd seen in them in months. She's a photographer, freelance. She travels, captures life as it happens. She's so free-spirited, so different from... He caught himself, but we both knew how that sentence ended. So different from you. Free-spirited. I thought about Renee. Blackwood's employee file sitting in my office drawer. The one that showed her struggling performance reviews, her multiple warnings for inappropriate workplace behavior, and her recent application for a promotion she wasn't qualified for. Yes, very free-spirited indeed. She makes me feel alive again, Peter continued, gaining confidence now that I wasn't screaming or throwing things. I know this is hard to hear, but I haven't been happy for a long time. We both know this marriage has been dying. Dying. What a convenient word for someone who wanted to justify their betrayal. Our marriage hadn't been dying. It had been changing, evolving as I built my career, and he stagnated in his. But apparently, evolution was too much work for Peter. So, what do you want? I asked, cutting through his self-serving monologue. He straightened in his chair, clearly relieved I was being so reasonable. I want a divorce. Renee and I, we want to start fresh. She's already looking at apartments for us. Apartments. Plural. Because of course Peter, who hadn't contributed meaningfully to our finances in years, assumed he'd be getting a generous settlement. After all, everyone knew his wife worked in consulting, a deliberately vague description I'd maintained for years to protect my privacy and avoid the complications that came with being Esme Chen, founder and CEO of Pinnacle Marketing Group, one of the fastest-growing agencies in the country. Does she know about your financial situation? I asked carefully. Peter shifted uncomfortably. She doesn't care about money. She loves me for who I am. This time I did laugh, a short, sharp sound that made him flinch. Of course Renee had told him she didn't care about money. She was playing a longer game, one I'd watched unfold from my corner office for months without realizing it would eventually land at my own dinner table. When did you meet her? I asked, though I suspected I already knew the answer. At that coffee shop near my office. She was editing photos on her laptop and we just started talking. It was like fate. Fate. Also known as Grindhouse Coffee on 5th Street, conveniently located between Peter's law firm and my company's headquarters. The same coffee shop where Pinnacle employees often held informal meetings. I'd probably passed Renee there a dozen times without recognizing her outside, of her usual blazers and pencil skirts. I've already talked to a lawyer, Peter continued, misinterpreting my silence for acceptance. We can make this clean and simple. I'm not asking for much, just what's fair. Fair. Another interesting word choice from a man who'd been having an affair for half a year. I wondered what his definition of fair would be once he learned the truth about his photographer girlfriend. I need some time to process this, I said finally, standing up from the table. You should stay somewhere, else tonight. Peter nodded eagerly, already reaching for his phone, probably to text Renee the good news. I'll pack a bag. Thank you for being so understanding, Esme. I know this isn't easy. As I watched him hurry upstairs to gather his things, I pulled out my own phone and opened my company directory. There she was. Renee Blackwood, Junior Marketing Associate, Employee ID 4521. Hired 8 months ago. Currently on a performance improvement plan. I scrolled through my calendar. Tomorrow morning, executive team meeting at 9 a.m., department reviews. At 11 a.m., and at 2 p.m., a one-on-one with HR about problematic employees. Peter came back downstairs with a duffel bag, looking like a teenager sneaking out past curfew. I'll call you tomorrow about the lawyer stuff, he said awkwardly. Take your time, I replied, meaning it in ways he couldn't possibly understand. After he left, I poured myself another glass of wine and sat in my home office. The one Peter always complained about, saying it was too big, too formal, that it made our house feel like a workplace. He had no idea that this room was command central for a company with over 500 employees and $200 million in annual revenue. I opened my laptop and pulled up our employee handbook, specifically the section on fraternization policies and ethical conduct. Then I accessed the security footage from our building's lobby. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Renee, leaving work at 5:30 p.m., changing from her corporate attire into bohemian dresses and sandals in the parking garage. The transformation from marketing associate to free-spirited photographer was remarkable. My phone buzzed with a text from my COO, Marcus. Heard through the grapevine that Blackwood's been bragging about landing a rich older boyfriend. Want me to handle it? I smiled for the first time that evening. Marcus had been my right hand for 7 years, one of the few people who knew about my marital situation and my desire for privacy. I typed back, "Not yet. I have plans for Ms. Blackwood." Opening a new browser window, I began drafting an email. To HR. Subject line, upcoming performance reviews and department restructuring. Peter thought he was getting a clean break, a fresh start with his young, free-spirited lover. What he didn't realize was that he'd just handed me the perfect opportunity to clean house, both at home and at work. And Renee Blackwood was about to learn that her CEO took both personal and professional betrayals very seriously indeed. As I worked late into the night, preparing for tomorrow's meetings, I thought about Peter's words. She sees the real me. Well, tomorrow, both he and Renee were going to see the real me too. The only question was, would they recognize what they were looking at before it was too late? I hadn't always been invisible in my own marriage. 12 years ago, when Peter and I met at a charity gala in Manhattan, I was already building Pinnacle, marketing from the ground up. But I was also just Esme, a 28-year-old entrepreneur with big dreams and bigger ambitions, wearing a borrowed dress and nursing a single glass of champagne to make it last all evening. Peter had approached me with the confidence of someone who'd never heard no in his life. "You look like you're planning to take over the world," he'd said, flashing that smile that probably worked on his law school classmates. "Just the marketing world," I'd replied. "For now." He'd laughed, genuinely charmed. Back then, Peter had been different. Or maybe I had been. Fresh out of Yale Law, working at Morgan & Associates, he carried himself like success was his birthright. He didn't mind that I worked 18-hour days or that my office was a converted studio apartment in Queens. If anything, he found it romantic. "You're nothing like the other women I know," he told me on our 4th date. "They're all waiting for their trust funds to kick in or their parents to set them up. You're actually building something." The irony wasn't lost on me now, considering Renee Blackwood's personnel files showed her father was a prominent real estate developer who'd pulled strings to get her the interview at Pinnacle. But back then, I'd fallen for Peter's attention. After years of being told I was too ambitious, too focused on work, too intimidating for most men. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Here was someone who seemed to celebrate those qualities. We married 2 years after meeting, and I insisted on keeping it small, just family and close. Friends at a restaurant in Brooklyn. Why not the plaza? Peter's mother had asked. You can afford it now, can't you, Esme? I could. Pinnacle had just landed its first $1 million client, and I was finally paying myself a real salary. But I'd learned early that money made people uncomfortable, especially when it belonged to a woman who'd earned it herself. I prefer something intimate, I'd said, and Peter had backed me up. Esme's not about flash, he'd told his mother. She's building an empire, but she's doing it her way. An empire. He'd been right about that, though neither of us knew how literal it would become. Within 5 years, Pinnacle went from 5 employees to 50, then 100. We moved from Queens to a brownstone in Park Slope, then finally to our current home in Scarsdale, the one with the home office Peter resented so much. The bigger Pinnacle grew, the more I tried to downplay my success at home. I'd tell Peter I worked in consulting when his colleagues asked. I'd skip industry events that might get press coverage. I even created a fake LinkedIn profile listing myself as a senior consultant instead of CEO. Why do you hide it? My best friend Natalie had asked once. She was my CFO and had watched this charade for years. It's easier, I'd said. Peter's already struggling at his firm. The last thing he needs is everyone knowing his wife runs a company worth more than his entire law firm. That's his problem, not yours, she'd replied. But I'd made it my problem. Every time Peter lost a case, missed a promotion, or watched another associate make partner while he didn't, I dimmed my own light a little more. I stopped mentioning our new clients, our expansion plans, our industry awards. I even had my assistant screen my calls so I wouldn't have to take business calls at home. Meanwhile, Peter grew more bitter with each passing year. Must be nice, he'd say when I worked from home. Setting your own hours, being your own boss. You could do it too, I'd offered once. Start your own practice. With what money? He'd snapped. We can't all be business genuises, Esme. That's when I realized he didn't want solutions. He wanted sympathy. He wanted me to be as miserable as he was, stuck in a job that didn't fulfill him, working for people who didn't appreciate him. I thought about all this as I reviewed Renee Blackwood's upcoming performance evaluation the next morning. She'd been hired 8 months ago, right around the time Peter had started coming home late, claiming he was networking with potential clients. Her interview notes were telling, candidate presents well, though seems more interested in our client. List than actual job responsibilities. When asked about career goals, focused heavily on networking opportunities and meeting successful people. Technical skills adequate, but not exceptional. I remembered that interview. I hadn't conducted it myself. I rarely did for entry-level positions, but I'd signed off on her hire based on my HR director's recommendation. She's well-connected, Diane had said. Her father knows people. Could be good for business development eventually. Now I wondered if Renee had been playing a longer game from the start. Had she known who I was? Had she deliberately targeted Peter, thinking she'd found a vulnerable access point to the CEO's personal life? I pulled up our building's security logs. Over the past 6 months, Renee had been leaving early almost every day, always changing clothes in the parking garage. Her time cards showed she was clocking out at 5:30, but she rarely returned to her desk after lunch. Yet somehow, she was always present when it mattered. When clients visited, when executives walked the floors, when opportunity knocked. Ms. Chen? My assistant Grace knocked softly. Mr. Harrison is here for the executive meeting. Marcus Harrison, my COO and one of my first hires, settled into the chair across from my desk. At 6'4" with prematurely silver hair, he cut an imposing figure, but I'd hired him for his brain, not his looks. So, he said without preamble. "I hear we're having a special guest reviewer for the marketing department evaluations today." I raised an eyebrow. Word travels fast. Word travels when the CEO suddenly takes interest in junior staff reviews. He studied me. This wouldn't have anything to do with Ms. Blackwood's recent extracurricular activities. Marcus was one of 3 people who knew my real identity at the company. The others were Natalie, my CFO, and Diane in HR. We'd built this company together, and they'd helped me maintain the privacy I'd insisted on from the beginning. "Did you know she's been telling people she's a photographer?" I asked. I knew she was lying about something. She's been cagey about her employment since she started dating her older boyfriend. He made air quotes. "Want me to handle it?" I shook my head. "No, I need to do this myself." Esme. Marcus leaned forward. "I know you want to deal with this personally, but remember, you built this company. You don't owe anyone explanations about your success." "I'm not explaining anything," I said. "I'm clarifying some misconceptions." He smiled. "That's my CEO talking, not the woman who's been hiding her light under a bushel for years." After Marcus left, I prepared for the afternoon's meetings. I'd scheduled Renee's review for 3 p.m. right after the department evaluations. I wanted her to sweat a little, to wonder why the mysterious CEO was suddenly taking interest in junior staff. My phone buzzed with a text from Peter. "Lawyer says we can file jointly. Makes things easier. Can we meet tonight to discuss terms?" Terms. As if our 12-year marriage was a business contract being dissolved. He texted back, "I'll have my lawyer contact yours." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, "You don't need to make this difficult. Renee and I just want to move forward." Move forward? With my employee, who was lying about her job while sleeping with my husband. "I understand completely," I replied. And I did. I understood that both Peter and Renee were about to learn that when you play games with someone's life, you better make sure you know who you're playing against. The afternoon couldn't come fast enough. The marketing department's open floor plan buzzed with nervous energy as I walked through at 2:45 p.m. I rarely visited this floor, one of the deliberate choices I'd made to maintain my low profile. But today was different. Heads turned, conversations stopped, and I could practically feel the speculation crackling through the air. Why is she here? Someone's definitely getting fired. I dressed carefully that morning, a charcoal Armani suit that cost more than Peter's monthly salary, Louboutin heels that added 3 inches to my 5'6" frame, and the Cartier watch I usually kept in my office safe. If I was going to reveal myself, I was going to do it on my terms. Renee sat at her desk near the windows, her honey blonde hair twisted into one of those deliberately messy buns that probably took 30 minutes to perfect. She wore a blazer that looked professional from the front, but I knew from security footage that it covered a sundress. Ready for her quick change routine in the parking garage. She hadn't noticed me yet. She was busy texting, her phone angled, away from nearby colleagues. I wondered if she was messaging Peter, maybe planning their evening together. Planning their future in the apartment they couldn't afford on his salary alone. "Ms. Chen?" A nervous voice interrupted my thoughts. James, the marketing department director, appeared at my elbow. "We weren't expecting you today. Is there something specific you need?" "Just observing," I said, loud enough for nearby desks to hear. "I like to check in on our teams occasionally." Renee's head snapped up at the sound of my voice. Her eyes met mine for a split second before she quickly looked away, but not before I caught the flash of recognition and fear. She knew exactly who I was. "Would you like to see our current campaign reports?" James offered, eager to please. He was a good director but had never met me in person before. "Actually, I'm here for the performance reviews. I understand Ms. Blackwood's evaluation is today?" The color drained from Renee's face. Her phone clattered onto her desk. "Yes, at 3 o'clock, James confirmed, glancing between us with confusion. though typically we handle junior staff reviews at the department level. I've decided to take a more hands-on approach with certain cases. I smiled pleasantly. Sometimes it's important for leadership to understand our employees' full potential, or lack thereof. For the next 15 minutes, I made myself comfortable in the department, asking questions about ongoing projects, reviewing work samples, making my presence felt. Renee grew increasingly agitated, fidgeting with her phone, glancing at the exit, probably calculating whether she could fake illness and leave. At 2:58, my phone buzzed. "Peter, are you really getting a lawyer involved? This doesn't have to be contentious," I typed back. "In a meeting. We'll discuss later." At exactly 3, I stood in front of the conference room. "Ms. Blackwood, if you're ready." Renee gathered her things with shaking hands. As she passed by her colleagues, I heard whispers. "Why is the CEO sitting in on her review? Didn't she just get put on a PIP? Maybe she's getting promoted?" If only they knew. Inside the conference room, I gestured for Renee to sit. James followed us in, clutching her personnel file. "Do you know who I am, Ms. Blackwood?" I asked, settling into my chair. She swallowed hard. You're Ms. Chen, the CEO." "That's right. And do you know why I'm here today?" "For my performance. Review?" "Partly." I opened her file. "I'm also here because I've noticed some interesting patterns in your work behavior. Your time card shows you leaving at 5:30 each day, yet security footage shows you actually leave much earlier. Can you explain?" Her face flushed. Sometimes I work from home in the evenings." "Really?" "Because your VPN logs show no remote access after hours." I flipped a page. "There's also the matter of your attire. You seem to have a very different style after work hours, almost like you're living a double life." "I don't think my personal style is relevant to my job performance," she said, trying to sound defiant. "You're right. But lying about your employment status might be." I leaned forward. "Tell me, Ms. Blackwood, when you told your boyfriend you're a freelance photographer, did you mention that you actually work here? At Pinnacle Marketing?" The blood drained from her face completely now. "How did you know about your boyfriend?" I smiled coldly. "That's an interesting story. You see, I've been married to Peter Chen for 12 years. Though I suppose he didn't mention that when you met him at that coffee shop. Just like you didn't mention that you work for his wife's company." James's jaw dropped. He looked between us like he was watching a tennis match. I didn't know," Renee stammered. "He never said his wife was— he said she worked in consulting and his last name is different and— Oh, I'm sure he didn't know either. Men can be remarkably unobservant when they're thinking with organs other than their brains." I closed her file. "The question is, what did you think would happen when the truth came out?" "Please," she whispered. "I never meant—" "Never meant what? To sleep with a married man? To lie about your job? To target the husband of your CEO?" My voice remained calm, professional. "Or never meant to get caught?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Are you firing me?" "That depends. Are you still planning to move into that apartment with my husband? The one you're looking at this weekend? The one neither of you can actually afford?" "How do you know about— The walls have ears, Ms. Blackwood. Especially when you discuss your plans in the company break room." She slumped in her chair, defeated. "What do you want?" "I want the truth. Did you know who I was when you targeted Peter?" I knew he was married to someone successful. I saw him at the coffee shop a few times, always looking miserable. He seemed like— She trailed off. "Like what? An easy mark?" "Like someone who needed attention," she finished weakly. "And you thought you'd provide that attention, along with a convenient fiction about being a free-spirited artist. It wasn't supposed to go this far." He kept talking about how unhappy he was, how his wife was never around, always working. He made it sound like you didn't care about him anymore. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. I cared enough to support him for 12 years while he failed to make partner. Cared enough to downplay my own success so he wouldn't feel inadequate. Cared enough to hide who I really was to protect his ego. Why? She asked, genuinely curious now. Why hide it? Because I loved him, I said simply. And I thought he loved me for who I was, not what I could provide. Clearly, I was wrong about both of us. My phone buzzed again. Peter. Renee isn't answering her phone. Is everything okay? She was supposed to meet me an hour ago. I showed the message to Renee. Shall I tell him you're in a meeting with your CEO? Or would you prefer to maintain your photographer persona a little longer? She buried her face in her hands. What happens now? Now? I stood up, smoothing my suit. Now you have a choice to make. You can resign quietly with a neutral reference and go live your photographer fantasy with my soon-to-be ex-husband. Or you can stay, knowing that everyone in this company will eventually learn the truth about your relationship with the CEO's husband. That's not a choice, she whispered. No, I agreed. It's a consequence. Something you and Peter are about to learn a lot about. I turned to James, who looked like he wished he could disappear into the wall. Mr. Harrison will handle the exit paperwork. I have another meeting to attend. As I walked out, my phone rang. Peter's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He'd learn the truth soon enough. Just not from me. I had a divorce lawyer to meet and a company to run. The time for hiding was over. The fallout began exactly 47 minutes after I left the conference room. Peter's texts came in rapid succession. What did you do? Renee just called crying. You had no right to interfere with her job. This is exactly why our marriage failed. You can't separate personal from professional. I sat in my corner office, watching the sunset paint Manhattan's skyline in shades of gold and crimson, and marveled at Peter's ability to make himself the victim in any situation. My phone continued to buzz with increasing urgency. Answer your damn phone, Esme. We need to talk now. I'm coming to your office. That last one made me look up. Security would never let him pass the lobby without my authorization, but Peter, in his current state, might make a scene. I pressed the intercom. Grace, please inform security that my husband may attempt to visit. He's not to be admitted to the building. Of course, Ms. Chen. Also, Mr. Harrison would like a word when you have a moment. Marcus appeared minutes later, closing the door behind him with deliberate care. So, Blackwood resigned, effective immediately. That was quick. She practically ran out of the building, left her personal items behind. He settled into the chair across from me. James is pretty shaken up. He had no idea about the connection. No one did. That was the point. Speaking of points, what's yours here, Esme? You could have handled this quietly. I turned from the window to face him. I've spent 12 years handling things quietly, making myself smaller, pretending to be less than I am. Where did that get me? Fair enough. Marcus studied me. Your phone's been going off non-stop. Peter's having a tantrum. What are you going to do about him? Before I could answer, Grace's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Chen, there's a situation in the lobby. Of course there was. I pulled up the security feed on my computer. There was Peter, red-faced and gesticulating wildly at our head of security. Tom. Even without audio, I could see he was making a scene. Want me to handle it? Marcus offered. No. He wants to see the CEO? Let him see the CEO. I took the executive. Elevator down to the lobby. The moment the doors opened, Peter's voice hit me like a wave. My wife. I have every right to see my wife. Sir? I've explained that you need authorization, Tom was saying, his professional calm being tested. Peter. My voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He whirled around, and for a moment, I saw genuine shock on his face. Not because I was there, but because of how I looked. Like the CEO I was, not the accommodating wife he thought he knew. Esme? He took a step toward me, then stopped. Why are you dressed like the CEO of this company? I finished. Because I am. The lobby had gone silent. The security staff, the late-working employees heading home, the cleaning crew, everyone was watching. You're… what? Peter's voice cracked. The CEO, the founder, the majority shareholder. I stepped closer. The woman who built this company from nothing while you were busy feeling sorry for yourself. But you said you were a consultant. No, Peter. You assumed I was a consultant because it fit your narrative. I just never corrected you. His face cycled through emotions: confusion, anger, betrayal, embarrassment. Why? Why would you lie to me? I never lied. I just protected you from your own insecurities. I gestured around the lobby. This is Pinnacle Marketing, my company. The one that's put Renee Blackwood on its payroll for the last 8 months while she was pretending to be a photographer. The remaining color drained from his face. She works here? Worked. Past tense. She resigned today after a particularly illuminating performance review. You fired her because of me? His voice rose again. You had no right. I didn't fire her. I gave her a choice. She chose to leave. I straightened my shoulders. Just like you chose to leave our marriage for a woman who lied about everything from her job to her interest in your potential. This is vindictive. Petty. You're using your position to what? Reveal the truth? I laughed. 6 months, Peter. You've been sleeping with one of my employees for 6 months. She knew who I was. She targeted you specifically because you were my husband. That's not… She wouldn't… Ask her. Ask her why she really hung out at that coffee shop. Ask her why she changed clothes in our parking garage every day. Ask her why she never mentioned where she actually worked. Peter swayed slightly, like I'd physically pushed him. I don't believe you. Security footage doesn't lie. I pulled out my phone, showed him a screenshot of Renee's ID badge photo, complete with the Pinnacle Marketing logo. Neither do employment records. He stared at the image, his world visibly crumbling. Even if that's true, you still had no right to run my company as I see fit? To maintain professional standards? To expect my employees not to conduct affairs with my spouse? My voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. Or did you mean I had no right to be successful without your permission? The silence stretched between us, heavy with 12 years of unspoken truths. Around us, people began to drift away, sensing the show was over. You want to know the real irony? I continued. If you'd bothered to actually look at our bank statements, our tax returns, anything, beyond your own wounded ego, you would have known exactly who I was. But you were too busy feeling diminished by a success you never tried to understand. You made me feel like a failure, he said quietly. No, Peter. You did that all by yourself. I just refused to fail with you. My phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer. Divorce papers ready. Shall I send them to his attorney? I looked at Peter, really looked at him for the first time in years. Saw the man who'd chosen to shrink rather than grow, who'd sought validation in the arms of a woman half his age rather than face his own shortcomings. Go home, Peter. Your lawyer will have papers tomorrow. What about our assets? The house? Your company? My company was built before our marriage and protected by the prenup you signed without reading because you were so sure I'd never amount to anything. I smiled coldly. As for the house, you're welcome to the equity you contributed. All $12,000 of it? You've been planning this, he accused. No. I've been building a life. You've been planning an escape. I turned toward the elevator. The difference is, I succeeded. Esme, wait. But I was already walking away, my heels clicking against the marble floor with the rhythm of finality. Behind me, I heard Tom politely but firmly asking Peter to leave the premises. In the elevator, I pulled up Renee's Instagram. Her latest post from an hour ago showed her tear-stained face with the caption, "Sometimes the universe tests us in unexpected ways. New chapter begins now. Phoenix rising. Authentic. Photographer life." The comments were already flooding in. "What happened, babe?" "Stay strong." "You're too good for whatever hurt you." I screenshotted it and sent it to my lawyer with a note. In case we need evidence of her continued false representation. The elevator reached my floor, and I stepped out into the executive. Sweet. Grace was still at her desk. "Cancel my morning meetings," I told her, "and set up a call with our PR team. It's time Pinnacle Marketing had a more public face." "Of course, Ms. Chen." She hesitated. "Are you all right?" I considered the question. Was I all right? My marriage was over. My carefully maintained privacy was shattered. Everything I'd built my life around for 12 years had crumbled in a single evening. And yet, I felt lighter than I had in years. "I'm perfect," I said, and meant it. Absolutely perfect. The divorce papers arrived at Peter's lawyer's office at 9 a.m. sharp the next morning. By 9:47, my phone was exploding with calls and texts. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the company-wide meeting I'd called for 11. "You're really doing this?" Natalie asked, reviewing my notes in the boardroom. As CFO and my best friend since college, she'd watched me hide my success for years. "It's time," I said. "No more hiding." Marcus walked in, followed by Diane from HR. "The rumor mill is in overdrive," he reported. "Especially in marketing. James looks like he hasn't slept." "Good morning, everyone." I started the meeting 5 minutes early, knowing most employees were already logged into the video call. The boardroom screen showed hundreds of faces from our New York headquarters and satellite offices across the country. "I've called this meeting to address some changes in our company leadership visibility." I paused, looking directly into the camera. "For 12 years, I've maintained a low profile as your CEO. That ends today." The chat sidebar erupted with messages, but I continued. "Effective immediately, I'll be taking a more active role in our daily operations, client relationships, and public representation of Pinnacle Marketing. This includes media appearances, industry events, and direct involvement in departmental operations." I clicked to the next slide, a professional headshot with my full title below it. Some of you may have heard rumors about recent personnel changes. I want to address this directly. Yes, an employee in our marketing department resigned yesterday, following revelations about unethical conduct. The chat went wild. I watched faces glance around their offices, probably looking at empty desks. This situation has highlighted the importance of transparency, both in our professional and personal lives. It's also reminded me that leadership means being present, visible, and accountable to all of you who have helped build this company. I spent the next 30 minutes outlining structural changes, new communication channels, and upcoming initiatives. When I finished, the applause through hundreds of speakers created an odd digital echo. "Questions?" I asked. Hands shot up in the virtual meeting room. I called on a junior designer from our Chicago office. "Ms. Chen, we've heard, rumors about your personal connection to the employee who resigned. Can you comment?" The room went silent. This was the moment I dreaded and anticipated in equal measure. Yes, the employee in question was having an affair with my husband. Neither of them knew about my position here, which was my choice. That secrecy enabled a situation that hurt both my personal life and our professional environment. Gasps echoed through the speakers. I share this not for sympathy, but as a lesson. When we hide our authentic selves, our achievements, our capabilities, our worth, we create spaces for others to diminish us. I won't make that mistake again. The chat exploded with supportive messages. I ended the meeting and walked back to my office, feeling like I'd shed a 1,000-pound weight. Grace intercepted me in the hallway. "Ms. Chen? There's a Ginger Walsh here to see you. She says she's Peter's sister?" I sighed. Ginger, Peter's older sister, had always been the mediator in their family. "Send her in." Ginger entered my office looking harried. At 45, she was a successful pediatrician who'd never had patience for her brother's self-pity. "Esme." She hugged me, which surprised us both. "I just heard. Peter called me ranting about, well, everything. Is it true? All these years you've been running one of the largest marketing firms in the country?" "Yes." She sank into a chair. "Why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you tell me?" Would it have made a difference? Peter still would have felt inadequate. Your mother still would have made comments about my little job. Your family still would have treated me like the outsider who wasn't good enough for the Walsh name. Ginger winced. "We were awful to you, weren't we? Not you specifically, but yes. Your family made it clear I was lucky to have married Peter, that he was settling for someone beneath his station. While you were building an empire." She shook her head. "And this girl he's been seeing? Renee Blackwood, 24, marketing associate at my company until yesterday. She's been pretending to be a freelance photographer while collecting a salary from me." Jesus. Ginger rubbed her temples. "Peter's at our mother's house, by the way. Showed up at midnight with a suitcase, ranting about betrayal and demanding to sue you for, I don't even know what. Fraud? He's welcome to try. Everything's been legally documented from day one." My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. "TMZ just called. Someone leaked the story." I showed it to Ginger, who whistled low. "This is about to get very public, isn't it?" Apparently. "What can I do to help?" I looked at her, surprised. "You want to help me? Not your brother?" "Peter made his bed. Literally with your employee." She grimaced. "Besides, I've always liked you better. You never asked to borrow money." Despite everything, I laughed. Peter had been hitting up his sister for investments in various failed schemes for years. "Just keep him away from the media," I said. "The last thing I need is him playing victim to the tabloids." After Ginger left, I called an emergency meeting with my PR team. Within hours, we had a strategy. Control the narrative before it controlled us. That evening, Page 6 ran the story. Manhattan marketing mogul's secret identity revealed in shocking divorce scandal. The article included a photo of Renee from her Instagram, still claiming to be a photographer, alongside my official CEO headshot. The contrast was damning. My phone rang. An unknown number. "Esme?" Renee's voice was barely a whisper. "Please don't hang up." "What do you want, Renee? I'm sorry. I didn't know you were... I knew you were successful, but not like this." Would it have mattered? A long pause. "He's broken, you know. Peter. He's been at his mother's, drinking, and he keeps saying he's going to expose you for hiding your wealth. He thinks it's fraud or something. Let him try. I have 12 years of financial records showing every penny was legally mine before marriage. He's also saying I seduced him for money, that I knew who you were all along. Didn't you? No. I knew his wife was successful, but I thought you were just some consultant who neglected him. He made it sound like you didn't care about anything but work. And you thought that justified sleeping with a married man? She started crying. "I thought I was saving him from a loveless marriage. He seemed so lost, so desperate for attention." He was, just not for the reasons you thought. What happens now? Now? You both get to live with your choices. Peter gets his divorce and whatever settlement the prenup allows. You get to find a new job and maybe learn that Instagram filters don't fix moral bankruptcy. That's cold. No, Renee. What's cold is pretending to be someone you're not while destroying a marriage. What's cold is targeting a vulnerable man because you thought his wife's success meant easy money. After I hung up, I stared out at the Manhattan skyline. 12 years ago, I'd stood in this same spot, though in a much smaller office, and promised myself I'd build something great. I'd kept that promise. Now it was time to make another one. Never again would I shrink myself to accommodate someone else's insecurity. My phone buzzed with a Google alert. The Huffington Post had picked up the story. CEO Esme Chen breaks silence on secret identity and husband's affair with employee. The article quoted my company-wide address. When we hide our authentic selves, we create spaces for others to diminish us. Comments were already pouring in. Queen, this is the energy we need. Imagine fumbling a CEO wife for an intern. The fact that she built an empire while he complained about not making partner, the audacity. I smiled, switched off alerts, and got back to work. I had a company to run, and for the first time in years, I wasn't hiding that fact from anyone. The walls I'd built to protect Peter's ego had finally come down. The question now was, what would I build in their place? The next 2 weeks unfolded like a carefully orchestrated PR campaign, which, in many ways, it was. My team had pivoted brilliantly from crisis management to strategic repositioning. The narrative shifted from scorned wife seeks revenge to successful CEO finally steps into the spotlight. Forbes called for an interview, then Bloomberg, then CNBC. I spent 12 years believing that my success needed to be hidden to protect my marriage, I told the Bloomberg reporter. What I didn't realize was that I was protecting my husband's ego at the expense of my own identity. The interview went viral. Authentic success began trending. Meanwhile, Peter was struggling with his new reality. His lawyer had reviewed the prenup and delivered the bad news. He was entitled to exactly what he'd contributed to the marriage financially. The house equity, minimal as it was from his contributions, and half of our joint savings account, which contained about $3,000 since I'd maintained separate accounts for the business. This is punitive, Peter's lawyer argued during our mediation session. This is contractual, my lawyer responded calmly. Mr. Walsh was fully aware of the terms when he signed. Peter sat across from me, looking older than his 42 years. You planned this all along. I planned to protect my business, I corrected. You planned to leave me for someone younger. We both got what we planned for. After the meeting, I returned to my office to find a bouquet of flowers on my desk. The card read, "From all the women whose husbands tell them to dim their light, thank you for shining. Your Toronto office team." Grace knocked on my door. "Ms. Chen? Lionel Sterling from Sterling Enterprises is on line 1. He says it's about a potential acquisition." Lionel Sterling. I'd admired his business acumen from afar for years, but our paths had never crossed professionally. Sterling Enterprises was a major player in digital marketing tech. Esme, his voice, was warm, professional. "I've been following your story. Impressive how you've handled this transition." "Thank you, Mr. Sterling." "Lionel, please. I'm calling because we're looking to acquire a traditional marketing firm to integrate with our tech platform. Pinnacle has always been on our radar, but frankly, we were never sure who was really running things there. Your recent transparency has clarified things nicely." I smiled at his diplomatic phrasing. "I appreciate your interest. I'm in New York next week. Perhaps we could discuss it over dinner?" After ending the call, I checked my phone. 17 missed calls from Peter, along with increasingly desperate texts. "Can we at least talk?" "You're being unreasonable. I made one mistake. Renee means nothing to me. I still love you." The last one almost made me laugh. Love? He didn't even know who I was. My assistant buzzed. "Ms. Chen? There's a young woman here to see you, Misty Reynolds. She says she's a business school student writing her thesis on women entrepreneurs who've hidden their success. She'd like an interview." I glanced at my calendar. I had 30 minutes before my next meeting. "Send her in." Misty Reynolds looked about 25, with intelligent eyes and a digital recorder. "Thank you for seeing me without an appointment, Ms. Chen. Your story is exactly what my thesis needs." "And what is your thesis about?" "It's called The Invisible Empire: Why Successful Women Hide Their Achievements in Personal Relationships." "I've been studying cases like yours, where accomplished women downplay their success to protect their partners' egos." "Interesting topic. Personal experience?" She hesitated. "My mother. She built a successful catering business, but always told people she helped out with events. My father left her anyway, for his secretary who made him feel important." "What happened to your mother's business?" "She expanded to 3 locations. After the divorce, turned out she didn't need to stay small after all." I smiled. "Smart woman. Like you. Can I ask, do you regret hiding your success for so long?" I considered the question. "I regret thinking I needed to. I regret believing that love meant making myself smaller. But I don't regret what I built while I was hiding it." "And what about him? Your husband? Do you think he genuinely didn't know, or did he choose not to see?" "That's the real question, isn't it?" I looked out my window at the Manhattan skyline. When someone benefits from your success but resents you for it, there's a special kind of willful blindness involved. Peter saw the house, the cars, the lifestyle, but somehow never questioned how a consultant could afford it all. "Self-deception as a survival mechanism," Misty said, making notes. "Exactly. It's easier to believe your wife is neglectful than to admit she's more successful. Easier to find validation elsewhere than to question why you need it." My phone buzzed with a news alert. Renee Blackwood launches GoFundMe for photography. Dreams after leaving corporate job. I showed it to Misty, who raised an eyebrow. "The mistress?" The ex-employee who forgot to change her LinkedIn profile. "She's still listed as working here while crowdfunding her artistic journey." Misty laughed. "The audacity is almost admirable. It's certainly consistent." After Misty left, I prepared for my afternoon meeting, a video call with our London office, about expansion plans. As I reviewed the briefing materials, I realized something. For the first time in years, I was thinking about my business without simultaneously worrying about how my success might affect my marriage. The freedom was intoxicating. At home that evening, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. 23 media requests, 14 interview invitations, and 6 speaking engagement offers filled my inbox. One email caught my eye. "Dear Ms. Chen, I hope this doesn't seem presumptuous, but your recent interviews deeply resonated with me. I'm a 35-year-old tech CEO who's been hiding my success from my husband for 3 years. Like you, I've been telling people I'm a consultant while actually running a company with 200 employees. After hearing your story, I've decided to stop hiding. Thank you for showing me it's possible to be successful without apology." With admiration, Sarah Martinez, CEO, Data Flow Systems. I hit reply. "Dear Sarah, it takes courage to step into your own light. Trust me when I say, anyone who truly loves you will celebrate your success, not feel threatened by it. The ones who don't were never worthy of your dimmed light in the first place. Wishing you strength for the journey ahead." Esme, as I sent the email, my phone buzzed. A text from Lionel Sterling. "Looking forward to our dinner next week. I have a feeling this could be the beginning of something extraordinary." I smiled, remembering Peter's text from earlier. "I still love you. Some people loved you for who they thought you should be. Others loved you for who you truly were. It was time to find out which one I deserved." The week before my dinner with Lionel Sterling, I received a call from an unexpected source. Walter Blackwood, Renee's father. Ms. Chen, I apologize for calling. Directly, but I felt this conversation required privacy. Walter Blackwood was a heavy hitter in commercial real estate, someone even my father respected. His voice carried the weight of old money and older secrets. Mr. Blackwood, how can I help you? I've just learned about the situation with my daughter. I want to offer my sincere apologies. That's not necessary. Please let me finish. I also want you to know that Renee's trust fund has been frozen. Her mother and I don't condone her behavior. I paused, surprised. I see. There's something else. Something I discovered when I started investigating this mess. His voice lowered. It seems my daughter wasn't acting alone. She had help. Help? Your husband's colleague at his law firm, a paralegal named Dominic Torres. He's been feeding Peter information about potential opportunities for months, including information about my daughter. The pieces clicked into place. Dominic Torres, I'd met him once at a firm holiday party. Ambitious, calculating, always watching for angles. Are you saying this was orchestrated? I'm saying Dominic knew exactly who you were. He also knew Peter's vulnerabilities. When Renee mentioned wanting to network her way up the corporate ladder, Dominic made the introduction. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Why would he do that? That's what I'm trying to determine. But I thought you should... No. After hanging up, I called Marcus. I need you to look into someone. Dominic Torres, paralegal at Morgan & Associates. On it. Anything specific? Everything. Financial records, social media, connections to our competitors. 2 days later, Marcus walked into my office with a thick folder. You're not going to like this, he said, spreading documents across my desk. Torres has been on the payroll of Meridian Marketing for 6 months. They're one of our biggest competitors. I studied the bank statements showing regular deposits. Corporate espionage? Looks like it, and it gets better. He's been dating Renee's cousin privately while setting her up with Peter publicly. So Peter wasn't just a cheating husband, he was a mark. A convenient one. Meridian's been trying to destabilize us before their IPO next month. What better way than a scandal involving our CEO? I picked up a printout of text messages between Dominic and someone saved as M in his phone. The photographer story is perfect. Peter's buying it completely. Wife still has no idea. M had replied, "Keep pushing. We need this to blow up before earnings." Well, I said, looking at Marcus, it certainly blew up, just not the way they planned. What do you want to do? I smiled. Let's give them exactly what they wanted. Opa, very public story about corporate espionage, attempted manipulation, and failed sabotage. But first, I have a dinner to attend. My meeting with Lionel Sterling was at Le Bernardin. He'd secured a private dining room, which I appreciated. Esme, he stood as I approached, tall and distinguished with silver temples. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the invitation. As we discussed the potential acquisition, I found myself impressed by his direct approach. No games, no posturing, just straightforward business. Can I be honest? He said over dessert. When I first heard about your situation, I thought it was just another corporate scandal. But the way you've handled it, turning a personal crisis into a powerful statement about women in business, that's remarkable. Sometimes the best opportunities come from the worst circumstances. Indeed, like this acquisition possibility. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have known who to approach at Pinnacle. Your emergence has simplified things considerably. I raised my wine glass. To unexpected benefits. As we toasted, my phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Peter served. With additional papers. Meridian connection confirmed. He's been subpoenaed as witness in corporate espionage case. I put my phone away and focused on Lionel, thinking about doors closing and others opening. The truth had a way of emerging, whether people were ready for it or not. and I was just getting started. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp at the St. Regis Hotel. My PR team had worked overtime to ensure maximum media coverage. Ready for this? Marcus asked as we waited in the green room. Absolutely. I adjusted my navy blazer, powerful but not aggressive. Is everyone in position? FBI's already at Meridian's headquarters. Torres was arrested this morning trying to board a flight to Miami. My phone buzzed. A text from Peter's divorce lawyer requesting an emergency meeting. I ignored it. Showtime, said my PR director, opening the door. The ballroom was packed with reporters, cameras, and industry insiders. I took the podium, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes. Good morning. Thank you for coming. 2 weeks ago, my personal life became public fodder when my husband's affair with an employee was exposed. Today, I'm here to reveal the complete truth. I clicked the first slide. A web of connections between Dominic Torres, Meridian Marketing, and Renee. This wasn't a simple affair. This was corporate espionage orchestrated by our competitor, Meridian Marketing, designed to destabilize Pinnacle during their pre-IPO phase. Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras flashed like lightning. Evidence shows that Dominic Torres, a paralegal at my husband's firm and secret Meridian operative, deliberately introduced my husband to Renee Blackwood, who was placed in my company as part of this scheme. The next slide showed bank records, text messages, emails, all carefully redacted to protect the ongoing FBI investigation. Mr. Torres received $50,000 from Meridian to orchestrate this operation. Ms. Blackwood was promised a senior position. At Meridian, once Pinnacle's reputation was damaged. A reporter shouted, "What about your husband? Was he involved?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. Peter Walsh was a target, not a conspirator. His personal vulnerabilities were exploited by professionals who knew exactly which buttons to push. It was generous, perhaps more than he deserved, but I wanted this to be about corporate crime, not personal vendetta. The FBI is now investigating Meridian's executives. 3 arrests were made this morning. I want to be clear. This isn't about a marriage that failed. This is about a competitor who chose illegal tactics over fair competition. I spent 20 minutes answering questions, each response calculated to control the narrative. By the end, our corporate espionage was trending, and Meridian's stock was plummeting. As I left the stage, my phone exploded with notifications. One stood out, a text from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but I'm the wife of Meridian's CEO. Thank you for exposing what kind of man I married. Janet Morrison." Back in my office, I found Peter waiting in the lobby, looking destroyed. "Esme, I had no idea." "I know," I cut him off. "That's what made you such a perfect target. Your ego, your resentment, your willingness to believe you deserved better, they played you like a violin." "I'm testifying against them," he said quietly. "Full immunity in exchange for cooperation." "Good. I know it doesn't change anything between us, but you're right, it doesn't," I signaled security. "But I hope you learned something from this." That evening, as Meridian's CEO was led away in handcuffs on the evening news, I received another text from Lionel Sterling. "Brilliant execution today. Dinner tomorrow to discuss acquisition terms. This time, you choose the restaurant." I smiled. Typing back, "My office, 7 p.m. I'll have my chef prepare something special." It was time to stop meeting on neutral ground. From now on, I'd be conducting business on my terms, in my space, as myself. The truth hadn't just emerged, it had exploded. And in the aftermath, I was finally free to build something new from the ashes of what had been. 3 weeks after the press conference, I sat in my corner office reviewing Pinnacle's soaring stock prices when Grace announced, "Ms. Chen, Renee Blackwood is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent." I glanced at the security monitor. Renee stood in the lobby, designer clothes replaced with simple jeans and a sweater, no trace of her former polish. Send her up, but have security stand. Bye. Renee entered looking hollow, defeated. The ambitious young woman who'd preened about landing a rich older boyfriend had vanished. Thank you for seeing me, she said quietly. You have 5 minutes? I need a job reference. Any job. The FBI cleared me of criminal charges since I didn't know about Meridian's plan, but… She swallowed hard. No one will hire me. My father cut me off. The photography business was fake. I've applied to 50 companies, and the moment they Google me, they find out you were the mistress in a corporate espionage scandal. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know about Meridian or Dominic's plan. I thought I was just being clever, networking my way up. By sleeping with your CEO's husband. I know how it looks. But I genuinely thought Peter was in a dead marriage with some workaholic consultant who ignored him. I thought I was saving him. I studied her carefully. And now? Now I'm 24, unemployable, and living in a studio apartment with 3 roommates. My Instagram followers disappeared overnight. Even the coffee shop where Peter and I met banned me. She looked down. I destroyed my own career for a man who was just using me to feel important. What kind of reference do you expect from me? An honest one. That I was a mediocre employee who made catastrophic personal choices. I need someone to acknowledge I existed in a professional capacity before I destroyed everything. I leaned back in my chair. 3 months ago, this woman had been in my husband's bed. Now she was begging for scraps of my professional credibility. I'll give you a reference, I said finally. It will confirm your employment dates and job responsibilities. Nothing more. Thank you, she whispered. Renee, can I give you some advice? She nodded. You're young. This scandal will fade. But what won't fade is the lesson you need to learn. From this. You tried to climb the ladder by tearing another woman down. You believed the lies a man told you about his wife because they made you feel special, chosen. Her eyes welled with tears. Next time you meet a married man who says his wife doesn't understand him, remember this moment. Remember standing in my office, begging for a reference from the woman whose life you helped destroy. I will, she said softly. I read your interviews about hiding your success. I think I understand now why you did it. Do you? You were trying to protect someone who didn't deserve it. Just like I was trying to save someone who didn't want to be saved. After she left, I stood at my window, looking out at the city. My phone buzzed with a text from Peter. The FBI says I'll likely avoid jail time if I cooperate fully. My lawyer says the divorce should be final next month. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know, seeing how they used me, how easily I fell for it all, I finally understand what I put you through. I'm sorry, Esme, for all of it. I didn't respond. Some apologies came too late to matter. Another text arrived, this one from Lionel Sterling. Acquisition. Papers are ready. My legal team is impressed with your company's fundamentals, as am I. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate? This time I responded immediately. I'd like that. At 5 p.m. I had my final meeting of the day, with Ginger, Peter's sister. Wanted you to know, she said. Our mother finally read all the articles about you. She's been telling everyone at her country club that she always knew you were going places. I laughed. Historical revisionism at its finest. Peter's living in her guest house. He's not doing well. The humiliation of being played, the public nature of everything. He's drinking too much. That's not my problem anymore, Ginger. I know. I just wanted to say thank you for not destroying him completely when you could have. And I'm sorry I didn't see who you really were all these years. Your brother didn't want anyone to see. I made it easy for him. Will you keep in touch? With me, I mean? I considered it. Yes, I think I will. That evening, I received an email from Forbes. Ms. Chen, We'd like to feature you on our next cover. The story of a CEO who built an empire while hiding in plain sight is exactly the kind of narrative our readers need. The cover title would be The Invisible Empire: How Esme Chen Built a 500-meter company while pretending to be a consultant. Plus, we understand Sterling Enterprises' acquisition offer values Pinnacle at $750. Care to comment? I smiled, typing. My response, I'd be honored. And yes, Sterling's offer reflects the true value of what I built while everyone was looking elsewhere. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying those who wronged you. It's succeeding beyond their wildest imagination. My phone rang. Lionel, have you seen the Journal article? He asked. Meridian's IPO has been canceled. Their CEO is stepping down. I saw. You know what this means. With your biggest competitor imploding, Pinnacle's value just increased. I might need to revise my offer upward. I might need to revise my plans too, I said. Maybe I'm not ready to sell after all. Or maybe, his voice was warm, we could discuss a merger instead. Equal partners. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window. For 12 years, I'd made myself smaller to accommodate Peter's ego. Now, powerful men were offering partnerships, real ones. Let's discuss it at dinner, I said. My terms, my timeline. Wouldn't have it any other way. As I hung up, I realized the ultimate irony. Peter had left me for a younger woman, believing she offered him a fresh start. Instead, his betrayal had given me the fresh start, one where I never had to pretend to be less than I was again. The woman reflected in my window wasn't hiding anymore. She was just beginning to shine. 2 months after the scandal broke, I found myself in uncharted territory. The acquisition talks with Lionel had evolved into something more complex and more personal. I'm hosting an industry dinner at my home in the Hamptons this weekend, Lionel said during our third negotiation meeting. Key players, potential investors. I'd like you to co-host. I raised an eyebrow. Co-host? As potential business partners, it makes sense for us to present a united front. He paused. Unless that makes you uncomfortable? 6 months ago, I would have declined, worried about perceptions. Now, I simply said, I'll have my stylist send over some options. The Hamptons dinner was a revelation. For the first time in years, I walked into a room as exactly who I was, not Peter's wife, not a mysterious consultant, but Esme Chen, CEO. Esme, Lionel introduced me to a group of venture capitalists, is the reason Pinnacle's valuation has tripled in 2 months. She built this empire while her competitors were playing corporate espionage games. We've been following your story, said Diana Newcomb from Blackstone. The way you handled the scandal was masterful. Turned a personal attack into a criminal investigation. Sometimes the truth is the best strategy, I replied. After dinner, Lionel and I stood on his terrace overlooking the ocean. You know what impresses me most, he said. You could have destroyed your ex-husband. One word from you about his mental state, his drinking, his debts. The media would have crucified him, but you kept it professional. Peter was a victim too. Of his own ego, maybe, but still a victim. That's generous. No, I said, watching the waves. It's strategic. This was never about Peter. It was about me finally owning my success. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer. Final divorce papers signed. Congratulations, you're officially single. I felt nothing. No sadness, no relief. Just a quiet acknowledgement that a chapter had closed. Everything okay? Lionel asked. Just, my lawyer. The divorce is final. How do you feel? Free, I said simply. For 12 years, I made decisions based on someone else's comfort level. Now I make them based on what's best for my company and myself. Speaking of decisions, he turned to face me. I need to tell you something. I'm withdrawing my acquisition offer. I blinked. Excuse me? You were right in our last call. Pinnacle shouldn't be acquired. It should expand. I want to propose something different, a strategic partnership. Our companies remain independent, but we combine resources for major projects. Why the change of heart? Because I've watched you these past months. You didn't just survive that. Scandal. You used it as a launching pad. Leaders like you shouldn't be acquired. They should be partnered with. I studied him carefully. And this has nothing to do with the rumors in the Financial Times about your interest in me personally? He smiled. I won't deny I find you attractive, Esme, but I'm even more attracted to your business acumen. I learned long ago not to mix romance with business deals. Good policy. But if we're not doing a deal anymore... He let the sentence. Hung up. My phone rang. Grace, my assistant. Sorry to bother you, Ms. Chen, but Peter Walsh is in the lobby of your apartment building. The doorman says he's intoxicated and refusing to leave. I sighed. Call the car service. I'll head back. Trouble? Lionel asked. My ex-husband, apparently drunk at my apartment building. I'll drive you back. That's not necessary. Esme. His voice was firm but kind. You've spent 12 years handling everything alone. Maybe it's time to let someone help. During the drive back to Manhattan, I checked my emails. Misty Reynolds, the business student I'd interviewed with weeks ago, had sent her completed thesis. The dedication read, "To all the women who dimmed their light to help men feel brighter, and to Esme Chen, who finally turned hers up to full beam." We arrived at my building to find Peter slumped against the wall, a security guard standing nearby. Esme! Peter stumbled forward. I need to talk to you. About us. There is no us, Peter. I made a mistake. We can fix this. I'll go to counseling. Whatever you want. What I want, I said calmly, is for you to go home and sober up. We're divorced. It's over. You're seeing someone else, aren't you? He noticed Lionel for the first time. Already? We've only been divorced for hours. Mr. Walsh? Lionel stepped forward, his voice professional. I think it's time you left. Who the hell are you? Someone who recognizes Ms. Chen's worth. Lionel replied evenly. Something you apparently never did. Peter's face crumpled. I lost everything. My reputation, my career, my wife, everything. No, Peter, I said softly. You threw it away. There's a difference. The security guard helped Peter into a waiting taxi. As we watched it drive away, Lionel turned to me. Want to get a drink? I know a quiet place that's still open. I hesitated. 3 months ago, I'd been someone's wife. 2 months ago, I'd been the center of a scandal. Now I was being asked for drinks by one of Manhattan's most eligible businessmen. One drink, I agreed, but we're not discussing business. Wouldn't dream of it. At the bar, over excellent whiskey, we talked about art, travel, books, everything, except mergers and acquisitions. For the first time in years, I felt like myself. Not the hidden CEO, not the accommodating wife, just Esme. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Meridian Marketing faces $50 million in fines over corporate espionage scandal. Still, checking the business news at midnight? Lionel teased. Old habits, I admitted. Here's to new ones, he said, raising his glass. We clinked glasses and I realized something. I wasn't just testing new boundaries in business. I was testing them in life. And for the first time, I was doing it on my own terms, without apology or explanation. The woman who'd once hidden her success to protect a fragile male ego was gone. In her place stood someone who understood that the right people would celebrate her strength, not feel threatened by it. As Lionel walked me home later, he said, You know what's remarkable? Most people would be bitter after what you've been through. But you've turned it into rocket fuel. Bitterness is expensive, I replied. Success is the best revenge. Is that what this is? Revenge? I smiled, thinking of my company's soaring valuation, my ex-husband's public humiliation, and the unexpected possibilities opening before me. "No," I said. "This is rebirth." The confrontation came 6 months after my divorce was finalized. At the annual Manhattan Business Awards Gala, I was nominated for CEO of the Year, a recognition I never could have accepted while hiding my identity. I spotted Peter across the ballroom before he saw me. He looked smaller somehow, diminished in his rented tuxedo. Beside him stood a younger woman, not Renee, but someone new, already looking bored. Esme. He approached during cocktail hour, his date trailing behind. "Congratulations on the nomination." "Thank you." "This is Amber." He gestured to his companion. "She's in real estate." Amber's eyes widened. "Wait, you're the Esme Chen? The one who exposed the Meridian scandal?" "That's right." "Wow." She turned to Peter. "You were married to her, and you cheated? Are you insane?" Peter's face flushed. "Amber, please." "I've read every article about you," Amber continued, ignoring him. "You're like my hero, building an empire while dealing with—" She glanced at Peter. "Well, you know." I couldn't help but smile. "Thank you, Amber. Peter, could we speak privately for a moment?" He followed me to a quiet corner, shoulders slumped. "I wanted to tell you," he began. "I'm in therapy now. Real therapy, not just crisis counseling. I'm trying to understand why I needed to tear you down to feel better about myself." "That's good, Peter. Growth is important. I see your company's valuation hit $1 billion last week." "Yes. And you're dating Lionel Sterling. We're exploring possibilities." He laughed bitterly. "You know what the worst part is? I spent our entire marriage resenting your success, and I didn't even know how successful you were. I was jealous of shadows." "You were jealous of your own imagination," I corrected. "You created a version of me to resent." "I know that now." He met my eyes. "I'm sorry, Esme. Not for my sake. I know there's no going back. But you deserved better. You deserved someone who celebrated your success, not someone who needed you to fail." "Yes," I agreed. "I did." From across the room, I caught Lionel's eye. He raised his champagne glass slightly, a quiet gesture of support. "I hope you find happiness, Peter. Real happiness, not the kind that depends on someone else being less than they are." "And you?" I smiled. "I already have." As I walked away, I heard Amber's voice. "So you actually left her for an intern? Do you know how pathetic that sounds?" 1 year after the scandal that changed everything, I stood at the podium of the New York Economic Club, delivering the keynote address to 500 business leaders. The day my husband asked for a divorce to marry his mistress, who was secretly my employee, I thought my world was ending. Instead, it was just beginning. The audience laughed, as they always did at this point in my story. I spent 12 years dimming my light to protect someone else's ego. Now, I run a billion-dollar company, openly and proudly. The message I want you to take away today isn't about revenge or scandal. It's about authenticity. After my speech, I returned to my corner office, the same one where I'd once held Renee's termination meeting. On my desk sat an invitation to my own wedding, scheduled for next month at Lionel's Hamptons estate. Our relationship had evolved naturally from business partners to something deeper. He celebrated every success, never felt threatened by my achievements. When Time magazine named me one of the 100 most influential business leaders, he threw a party. My phone buzzed with a text from Peter. "Saw your engagement announcement. Truly happy for you. Thank you for showing me who I could have been if I hadn't been so afraid of who you were." I didn't respond. Some chapters really were closed. An email popped up from Sarah Martinez, the tech CEO who'd written to me a year ago. "Following your advice changed my life. My husband left when I came clean about my success, and last week, I rang the NASDAQ bell for my IPO. Thank you for lighting the way. On my bookshelf sat a framed copy of Misty Reynolds' thesis, now being adapted into a book about successful women who hid their achievements. The dedication still made me smile. As evening fell over Manhattan, I gathered my things for dinner with Lionel's children, teenagers who'd already started calling me the cool stepmom who catches corporate spies. Grace knocked on my door. Ms. Chen? Forbes is confirming. You're officially a billionaire as of today's market close. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago. Successful but hidden. Accomplished but apologetic. Now I was neither hiding nor apologizing. Tell them the quote is, "The best business decision I ever made was finally being myself." As I left the office, the setting sun painted the skyline gold, the same color as the truth that had finally set me free. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.